On today's episode of The Franchise, this is episode number 9, and today we're going to go over the NFL Week 5. We're going to recap the games and some of the headlines from Week 5 of the NFL season, as well as the first power rankings of the season. Going to rank all 32 teams from worst to best. Week 5 seems like an appropriate time to do the first one, since it seems like we have a pretty good understanding of what most of these teams are so far. As well as we're going to do our Heisman favorites in college football, some of the favorites to win that award so far, and there's really one clear guy that I'll go over and discuss, as well as the MLB Wild Card and Divisional round. Going to recap that, talk about some of the games that just happened today in the Divisional round, and then we're going to end it off with an NBA preview for the 2022-23 season. So this should be a pretty jam-packed episode, so let's just get right into it with the NFL Week 5 recap. Last episode, we did the Thursday Night Football. We talked about that game between the Broncos and the Indianapolis Colts, which was one of the worst football games of recent memory. Very, very low scoring, very boring. Offenses really struggled. There was really no bright spots in the game. I don't believe there was any touchdown scored until overtime, so that was a very boring part, but we already recapped that game. So it's all of the Sunday games, including the Monday game in this episode. Beginning with the second London game on the season, you had the New York Giants take on the Green Bay Packers, and the Giants pulled off an upset. The Giants were 3-1 heading into this game, same record as the Packers, and they come out of it 4-1. Green Bay loses. They fall 27-22. The Giants are a very interesting team. When we do the power rankings, you'll find out where I have them put, where I have them ranked overall in terms of the league. But really, I don't think the Giants are a legit team. Despite their 4-1 record, you look at the teams that they have played. They played the Titans. They won that game on a missed field goal by Tennessee. They lost to the Cowboys. They've played. They just played the Packers. Now, obviously, the Packers is. They played the Bears too. Obviously, the Packers is a good football team. They are a good team with a really good defense and a great offense. And they did find a way to win this game. However, it's in London. And sometimes these games happen where a team will go and beat the better team. That happens all the time. It's sports. It's going to happen. But for the Giants, their team is really just one-dimensional, and that is Saquon Barkley is their football team. He is their entire offense and, frankly, their entire team. Now, props to their first-year head coach, Brian Daboll, former offensive coordinator of the Buffalo Bills. He turned this offense from last year one of the worst bottom 3 offenses in the league, depending on what metric and stat you're looking at, to this year one of the middle of the pack offenses so far this season. Their running game is legit, with Saquon Barkley, and Daniel Jones has the ability to run too at quarterback, but that is also one of their struggles, and that is Daniel Jones at quarterback. You look through his first few seasons in the NFL, he's not been a guy that you can count on in big moments to throw the football downfield and make a big play. And he's had a lot of trouble with ball security and making correct decisions in the passing game. Saquon Barkley, had a great first year, rookie season, got injured most recent seasons, and this year's coming back to his old self, which is great to see. But the Giants have no receivers, and they have one of the worst defenses in the game of football. They ranked 31st offensively they ranked 31st in yards per game, but they also ranked 12th in yards allowed, which isn't bad. Their defense is playing good. But despite that, them being 4-1, I don't think they're a legit team. I think this is just a really good start for a team that will probably could win 6 to 7, maybe even 8 games. But for the Packers, they do lose. They fall to 3-2. Really, there's no worries here for Green Bay. As you'll find out once again in the power rankings later on, I see no there's really no issue for me with the Packers and what how they're going to end up this season. They are a team that has a lot of talent and a lot of weapons on it. Aaron Rodgers at quarterback at the helm, 4-time MVP, has just won 2 back-to-back, right? Offensively, their receiving weapons. They don't have Devontae Adams anymore, who is one of the best receivers in the game. But they do have Allen Lazard and Randall Cobb, who are both guys that Aaron Rodgers has liked throwing the ball to. And they have a really good 2 running back duo in Aaron Jones and A.J. Dillon. And defensively, the Packers are great too. They're 5th in yards allowed this season, one of the best defensive units in the league. And I expect them to be in the postseason and as far as possibly the Super Bowl, but I'd expect them to be possibly in that NFC Championship game this season. So no big deal for the Packers. Yes, it sucks that they lost, but there's no need to overreact to them losing to the Giants by 5 points. Moving on, we have the Pittsburgh Steelers. They went and traveled to Buffalo to play the Bills, and this game was very, very, very one-sided in favor of the Buffalo Bills. They ended up winning this game 38-3 in Kenny Pickett's first NFL start for the Steelers, his second game, first start. 34-52, 327 yards, and an interception. And Josh Allen on the other side for the Bills was amazing. 424 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and a pick. Gabe Davis played amazing for the Bills, 171 yards and 2 touchdowns, only on three catches. And Stephon Diggs had himself an amazing day too. One thing I want to touch on with the Steelers, and this is really the big thing, is Mike Tomlin. There's been tweets and chatter and videos of people saying that Mike Tomlin is on the hot seat. And to me, this is just stupid. All right, if you're the Steelers, if you're any team and you have Mike Tomlin, who's one of the best coaches in the league, despite what the Steelers are this year, you'd be dumb to fire a guy like Mike Tomlin. He's one of the best coaches in the league of the past decade plus. He's been an amazing coach, has had so many winning seasons. This year, it's not his fault that this team is 1-4. Offensively, they have no offensive line. Najee Harris has taken a major step back compared to what he did last year, his rookie year. And their quarterback play right now has been Mitchell Trubisky, which has been very mid or even below that. And a rookie, Kenny Pickett, who has amazing talent, but then again, he's a rookie. And, you're not expecting a guy like this to come out here guns blazing like Patrick Mahomes did or some of these other top echelon quarterbacks in the game. So it would be really, really dumb if you're the Steelers to let go of a guy like Mike Tomlin. Once again, the Steelers have only had 3 coaches in the history of their franchise. So this is a team that really believes in a head coach when they get their guy. And Mike Tomlin's their guy. You got to ride out Mike Tomlin for at least a few more seasons. If they have 3 more straight losing seasons and there's no progress, okay, maybe there's a conversation there about letting go of Mike Tomlin. But right now, you do not want to do that because of what he brings to this football team. As a head coach is incredible. And really, none of this is his fault. Is the offensive coordinator and is the team that has been put on the field for him to coach. And for the Bills, they're the best team in football. There's really no holes except for their run game. But Josh Allen can just really do it all. Moving on, we have the Chargers. They took on the Browns in Cleveland, and they won this game in a nail-biter, 30-28. The Chargers, they were up near the end of the game. Browns had no timeouts. Fourth and 1, I believe it was. And the Chargers decided to go for it. And instead of kicking a field goal to put them up, and they don't convert on 4th down, sets up the Browns for some good field position to potentially win the game. Ultimately, the Chargers win. Herbert, 228 and a touchdown. Brissett, 230, touchdown and a pick. This game was very, very running back heavy with Austin Eckler rushing for 173 yards and a touchdown. He also had a receiving touchdown in this game. Also, Nick Chubb had 17 carries, 134 yards, and 2 touchdowns as well. Mike Williams had a nice game for the Chargers. The Browns are a team that you'll find out a little bit later. I really, really like. Their offense is very good this season, and that's with Jacoby Brissett at quarterback, who's by far not a bad quarterback. He's a good NFL quarterback. But remember, this team's getting Deshaun Watson back week 13. So if he can just fit into this offense is going to get a lot better. Defensively, they do need to iron some things out. They do have good players on that defense, but as a unit, they have not been playing up to the expectation so far this season. And the Chargers, they pick up a much-needed win. I mean, they won last week, right? But you don't want to fall to 2-3 in the AFC West, where the Chiefs are the dominant team. 3-2 keeps them right there with Kansas City, and they're just a really good team. They're defensively, they're struggling. They rebuilt that whole defensive thought this offseason, and there's been injuries. Joey Bosa's been out. J.C. Jackson's missed some games. But defensively, they will get better. Hopefully, that's what you think with all these stars on their defense. But the Chargers offensively, and for the Browns, they both offensively are some great teams. Bears traveled to Minnesota, take on the Vikings. Minnesota ends up winning this game 29-22. They improved to 4-1, and they are now first place in the NFC North. This was a game that was very close and this is a game that shouldn't have been as close as it was. Is what I'm trying to say. The Vikings, they do have one of the worst defensive units in the game of football, but the Bears are not a team that you would expect at all this season to be somewhat competitive or be in really any of the games that they are in. Justin Fields threw 21 passes this game, which probably is an all-time record for him. I mean, he barely ever throws the ball. 208 and a touchdown for him. Kirk Cousins has been playing pretty solid. He's been playing about as Kirk Cousins as it gets as of late. Dalvin Cook with 94 yards and 2 touchdowns after coming back from a shoulder injury. And Justin Jefferson had himself a day with 154 yards receiving. The Bears had a legit shot of winning this football game. Nice catch by one of their wide receivers, and then ultimately gets stripped right out of his hands, and the Vikings win this game, where they are now sole possession of first place. But that does not mean that they are a better team than the Packers, as we'll find out later. Lions go to New England, and they don't score a single point. In what is a top 3 offense in the game of football, the Lions get shut out against the Patriots. Patriots brought back their red uniforms for this game, their throwbacks, and their third-string quarterback, Zappe, gets it done with 188 yards and a touchdown. Jared Goff had a bad game for a guy that's been playing very solid football this season. Really, Detroit had no offense this game. Obviously, they didn't score a single point, so they have no offense. Stevenson for the Patriots on 25 carries with 161 yards. There's definitely a conversation to be had about Dan Campbell, the head coach of the Lions. This guy puts his heart and soul into the team, right? But I think at some point this season, if the Lions continue to struggle like they just did and like they have this season, they've been great offensively, but defensively, they're the worst team in football. They cannot stop a team to save their life. So if their offense isn't there, they're going to lose a lot of games. And you have to look at some point probably at Dan Campbell and ask if he is actually the guy that he can win you these football games. Because, yes, he is a guy that's going to bring a locker room and a team together and create a culture that you want out of a winning team. But are they actually going to be a team that wins games? And for the Patriots, they pick up a win. They would have fell to 1-4 if they lose this game. So they're 2-3, still last in the AFC East. But there's definitely a possibility for a conversation when Mac Jones is healthy, if he comes back and starts, or if they keep it with the third string Zappe, Or maybe if Jones struggles when in a few games that he comes back, is there a conversation of Jones getting pulled for the third stringer? Seattle lost to the Saints by a score of 39-32. Seattle has one of the worst defenses in the league in the game of football, but their offense, led by Geno Smith, who has been on a tear this season, playing some of the best football of his career. He has the highest completion percentage among qualified quarterbacks, who's actually thrown a majority of the passes in games. Geno Smith is on fire. He had 3 touchdowns in this game against the Saints, but he was not really the story of the game. The story of the game was Taysom Hill, the quarterback, tight end, wide receiver, running back for the New Orleans Saints. He had 9 carries for 112 yards and 3 touchdowns out of the backfield. A lot of wildcat plays, a lot of rushes, pitch outs for Taysom Hill. And when this guy gets the ball, it seems like he cannot be tackled. He's just one of those guys that he gets the ball and he's breaking 20 tackles and getting into the end zone for a touchdown. And Taysom Hill is a really interesting, amazing player. He's a great athlete to be able to play quarterback, receiver, tight end, running back, and be this dynamic piece to the Saints offense. They pick up a win. Both these teams 2-3. The Seahawks are interesting though. Geno Smith has been playing amazing so far this season. Can he sustain it? Can he possibly show that maybe Seattle doesn't need to get a quarterback, and maybe he could be that guy to step in and fill the hole left behind by Russell Wilson? Time will tell, but there's no doubt that he is having an amazing season so far, and all praise to Geno Smith. The Jets, they pulled off an upset win against the Dolphins. I don't know if it's really an upset because of Tua not playing and Teddy Bridgewater getting injured. So it was time for the third-string rookie to come in to the action. And really, that's why they lost this game, the Dolphins. Because, third-string rookie, not going to be able to do much. Tyreek Hill only had 47 yards in this game. And the Jets, the story for them was the running game. Raheem Mostert, well, he's on the Dolphins. But Breece Hall, 18 carries, 97 yards, and a touchdown. Michael Carter, 21 yards and a touchdown. Braxton Berrios, a touchdown. And Zach Wilson with a rushing touchdown as well. Breece Hall was probably the player of the game. Over 197 total scrimmage yards. He had 2 receptions for 100 yards in this game. Both these teams 3-2. So the Jets are second place in the AFC East. This doesn't mean much for them. They're not going to be here at the end of the season. They could finish above the Patriots, but there's no way that they'll be better than the Dolphins. Once Tua comes back, I think this Dolphins team, like we were saying when they were 3-0, they're going to be a team that's going to be there in the end. Are they one of the Super Bowl contenders? Probably not. But they're definitely a better team than the Jets with Tua, and when the cards go in their favor. Like I said with the Giants game, this is one of the games that's going to happen. Like every single week, you're going to get that team that's definitely not better than the team that they're playing, that just finds a way to win, whether it's through injuries or somehow they just have a better game plan than the other team. The Buccaneers beat the division rival Atlanta Falcons 21-15. Tom Brady had himself a day, as well as Leonard Fournette having an amazing game. 14 carries, 10 receptions, 56 rushing, 83 receiving yards, and 2 total touchdowns. Tampa Bay is there. They are one of the premier teams in the NFC. I remember going back a few episodes ago, there was conversation. These were not my words. These were the partner Jake, his words at the time. He was not exactly his words, but he was saying some stuff along the lines of, is Tom Brady, is he showing signs of not being the same old Tom? Well, those conversations and that chatters has been shut down. The Buccaneers, we all know how good their defense is. It is one of the best defensive units in the game of football. They are third in sacks, fourth in turnovers, and third in yards allowed. So they are one of the premier defenses in the NFL. Offensively, they've struggled. They've missed a lot of guys. Mike Evans was out with a suspension. Chris Godwin's been injured. Julio Jones has been injured. Their offensive line is injured. But slowly throughout the season, they're going to get better, and they have gotten better week to week so far offensively. So they will be there in the end. In Atlanta, they're just not a good team. I mean, defensively, they struggle, and offensively, they cannot throw the ball. Kyle Pitts doesn't get the ball, and Drake London gets the ball more than Pitts, but it's really Marcus Mariota's just going to rush because their head coach, Arthur Smith, has no faith in Marcus Mariota doing his job as a quarterback and throwing the football down the field. The Titans beat the Commanders 21-17. There's been a lot of hate on Carson Wentz. And this guy, he's a baller. And, this is going to go, I'm going to tie this into the Indianapolis Colts. Carson Wentz in this game had 359 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a pick. The Colts offense this year is among one of the bottom 5 teams in the NFL. Offensively, in yards, in points, in passing yards. And most of that is at the helm of their offensive line, Matt Ryan, and the receiving corps, the whole offensive unit as a whole. I think there's a legit argument for Carson Wentz shouldn't have been traded. Carson Wentz is not one of the top 15 quarterbacks in the NFL. I'm not saying that at all because it's not true. But Carson Wentz did more for that Colts offense last year than Matt Ryan has been doing. The Colts offense last year was ranked 9th in the game, and they have fallen towards one of the bottom 5 teams in the league offensively with Matt Ryan at quarterback. Carson Wentz is a really, really solid player. He is able to get the job done as a quarterback. He's able to sling the ball, put up points on the board. Is he going to make interceptions? Is he going to fumble the ball? Is he an injury risk? Is he going to make a lot of mistakes? Yes, he is, because that is what he's shown. But he's also shown how great he is as a passer, as a guy that can lead an offense. So there's definitely an argument for the Colts making a mistake by getting rid of Carson Wentz in the offseason. But the Commanders do fall to 1-4, one of the worst teams in the NFL in total. And the Titans now have the sole possession of first place in the AFC South. Derrick Henry has an amazing game with 102 yards and 2 touchdowns. Especially those first 2 weeks for the Titans against the Giants where they lost and against the Bills where they horrifically lost. It looked like they were not going to be there at the end of the year, but with the Colts and the Texans being very bad teams and the Jaguars being a big unknown, the Titans seem like the team right now that is going to end up winning that division. Speaking of that division, you got a matchup between the Texans and the Jaguars. And this game raised a lot of questions about Jacksonville for me. They obviously beat the Colts. They shut them out at home. And then they went on the road and beat the Chargers. But they just lost to the Texans, one of the worst teams in the league. And then they're now 2-3. They put up 6 points on the day. Texans won this game 13-6. Trevor Lawrence, 25 of 47, 286 yards and 2 touchdowns. Dameon Pierce of the Texans, 99 yards and a touchdown for him rushing-wise. This just raises a lot of questions about the Jaguars because there was a conversation 2 weeks ago about them being a team that is legit, that could win this division, and it's still a possibility. We're 5 weeks in. There's a possibility the Jaguars come back and win this division. But this is a bad loss to a team that in the Texans that are bad defensively and bad offensively. They're just not a good football team. Tough loss for the Jaguars. It just raises a lot of questions about how legit they can be this season. But, I guess we'll find out later on. Niners at Panthers. Niners blew them out 37-15. The Panthers fell to 1-4, and they fired their head coach Matt Rule after 3 seasons of subpar football. Matt Rule's now owed $40 million to no longer be the head coach of the Carolina Panthers. And this really just shows that that teams need to stop trading for quarterbacks who have failed on their first team. Because the statistics show that if you were a first-round draft pick quarterback, or maybe first or second-round guy getting drafted, you start 4 seasons with a team, and then you get traded to a new team because you were not living up to the expectations of your pick number, you're just not going to perform at your new team. All right, Sam Darnold was an example. Not good on the Jets. Panthers take a chance on him. He's not good either. You look at Baker Mayfield, not good with the Browns. Or he was okay with Cleveland, but he comes here to Carolina, and he's not good so far in his stint with the Panthers. Mariota hasn't been good since he left Tennessee. The best player that's ever changed teams, really at the quarterback position, as of the last 10 years, has been Ryan Tannehill. He's had the most success. But this offense for Carolina is really bad. Baker Mayfield's not playing good football at all. And this is why Matt Rule got fired. He's supposed to bring the fire, bring the offensive game plan to make this team successful. And now Baker Mayfield's going to be out next week. Sam Darnold's out. So they got to play P.J. Walker, former XFL MVP. But Carolina, they're really bad. The 49ers are an amazing team. They lead the league in so many defensive categories. And their offense is getting there too. Deebo Samuel had a quiet game, but their running game with Jeff Wilson was amazing this game. And George Kittle's slowly easing himself back into some quality football games. Cowboys and Rams was an amazing game, and there's some stuff I want to talk here about the Dallas Cowboys. They win this game 22-10, and they go 4-1 on the season. The Cowboys have one of the best defenses in the game. They're second in sacks, second in turnovers, and 7th in yards allowed. This game, they really showed that defensively. Obviously, they had a defensive fumble recovery touchdown, a blocked punt, 5 sacks, and an interception. 2 of the sacks were by the best player on their defense, Micah Parsons. So their defense is legit. They have a championship caliber defense in Dallas. And then the other conversation for the Cowboys is Cooper Rush. He's now 4-0 this season, 5-0 in his career as a starter for the Cowboys. The debate has been when Dak Prescott is healthy enough to come back and play football for the Cowboys. Presumably, probably in the next 2 to 4 weeks, maybe. That's at least what the timetable was at the time of him getting injured. He would be back pretty soon. But the conversation that Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott is a quarterback debate when Dak is coming back to be healthy is stupid. All right, Cooper Rush is playing amazing. He's playing good. But this offense will be so much better with Dak Prescott at quarterback. This team right now ranks 27th in yards per game. And Cooper Rush in his last 2 games has thrown 25 completions combined. He's not throwing the ball a lot. But offensively, they're doing enough to win these games with their defense shutting it down for the opposing team. Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott are a nice running game. Tony Pollard is probably a little bit better than Ezekiel Elliott right now. CeeDee Lamb and Michael Gallup in their receiving weapons. But you put Dak Prescott on this team and this Cowboys offense, and this Cowboys team is a real legit contender in the NFC. So to hear, Cooper Rush and Dak Prescott is a potential quarterback battle, and would you start Cooper Rush over Dak Prescott, to me is silly. I think there's definitely a team next season that if they don't draft a quarterback or they want to test the waters on a guy that isn't going to cost them as much, there's definitely the possibility that Cooper Rush gets the starting job next season. But Dak Prescott should be the starter when he's able to come back. But this Cowboys team has a championship caliber defense, which is, really, really good for the Cowboys if they can just get an above average offense when Dak comes back. The Eagles improved to 5-0. They beat the Cardinals 20-17. Jalen Hurts, 239 yards passing. He had 61 yards rushing, 2 touchdowns. The Cardinals have once again shown struggles in the first quarter scoring. They didn't score a point in the first quarter. And the Eagles are amazing. They're 4th in yards allowed, 4th in sacks, 1st in turnovers, 4th in rushing. They're 5-0. So obviously they're one of the best teams in the game. I don't think they're a fraud 5-0. They're not like the Giants. They're not a fraud team. I think the Eagles will be there at the end of the year as one of these legit teams that could definitely go out there and win a Super Bowl. And the Cardinals have a lot of struggles. I think some point, either probably not during the season unless they have a really, really bad stretch, but definitely in the offseason. If they don't make the playoffs, you will no longer be seeing Cliff Kingsbury there as the head coach of the Cardinals, because offensively this team is struggling a lot. And defensively, they're not playing good football either, but with Kyler Murray, a guy you're paying over $160 million guaranteed to, you expect a lot more out of this offense. Sunday Night Football, we had the Bengals and the Ravens in a divisional matchup of the AFC North. The Ravens pull away 19-17. They go to 3-2 on the season. Justin Tucker won them this game. He had a game-winning field goal. And Justin Tucker has now made 61 straight kicks in the fourth quarter and overtime, and has made 19 game-winning kicks in his career. He's a perfect 17 for 17 in the final minute of regulation or overtime. In other words, he is automatic. Justin Tucker, if the game is on the line in the fourth quarter or in overtime and you send him out there to kick, the opposing team might as well just get on the plane right now, because they're going to end up losing the game. Justin Tucker is him at the kicking position. Lamar had another game, back-to-back weeks, where he's definitely struggled. He had a bad pick, missed a few touchdowns. Rushing-wise, he only put up 58 yards. And for the Bengals, this was a must-win game for them. They win this, they're atop of the AFC North when they started out 0-2. But, the struggles for the Bengals are all on their offensive line. Joe Burrow has been sacked the 3rd or 4th most in the NFL. It's surprising to see that there's people that have been sacked more than Joe Burrow. Which just reminded me, there's a guy that we just passed over not too long ago that's been sacked more. I'm going to go back to that Cowboys-Rams game real quick, because I didn't talk about the Rams at all. The Rams are a very interesting team. Obviously, they won the Super Bowl last year. But I think this team's Super Bowl window, it has closed. I think their window was from the Jared Goff year when they made the Super Bowl, and from then until last season when they ultimately won the Super Bowl. I think that was their window. They traded a lot of first-round picks, a lot of second-round picks during that time. They spent a lot of money during that time. And now you find them with no offensive line, mixing and matching players every single game, every single week at those offensive line positions. They have a very weak running game. Matthew Stafford's been sacked 21 times. He's thrown, 5 interceptions, 6 interceptions on the season, 7 picks on the season, 5 touchdowns. Cooper Kupp is the best player on the Rams right now. Besides Aaron Donald. But the Rams defense, they're playing good. They're playing pretty solid. They're 11th in yards allowed, so they're a top 11 defense. But they're allowing 23 points a game, and their offense is not playing good. I think their Super Bowl window is closed. Doesn't mean I don't think they won't make the playoffs or won't win their division, but I don't see them being a championship team this season. And if that soundbite comes back to bite me at the end of the season, if they end up winning the Super Bowl, go ahead and rub it in my face. But I don't see that happening this season. And finally, in the recap of the Week 5 games, we had Monday Night Football between the Raiders and the Chiefs. Chiefs pull off a win 30-29. They go to 4-1 on the season, and the Raiders are 1-4. But the Raiders are not a bad team. They're not a bad 1-4. I would take them over the Broncos. I'd take them over the Texans, the Panthers, the Steelers, any of the bottom teams in the league. Take them over the Falcons. The Raiders have been in a lot of these games. They lost 24-19. They lost 29-23, 24-22, and they just lost by 1 point to the Chiefs. And really, they had a chance to tie this game. There was a touchdown in the fourth quarter. I think there was 3 minutes left on the clock, and the Raiders just scored a touchdown, and they just had to go for 2. I understand the reasoning behind it. Fourth quarter, you're playing Kansas City. This team's going to get the ball back. There's 3 minutes left in the game. And Kansas City has been known in these moments when they have not a lot of time on the clock to score and win the game and score touchdowns. So I understand the reasoning for going for 2. But I would understand that if you were down 28. If you're down 28-30, going for 2 makes sense because you're going to tie the game. But if all you need is one field goal or one extra point to make this a tie game, I think you have to take that. Because even if the Chiefs go back and score, which isn't guaranteed, what if you come up clutch? What if they go 3 and out? Then you have the ball back, you have your timeouts, and then you have the chance to kick a field goal, win the game, score a touchdown, win the game. The odds are forever in your favor if you are tied. If you don't score or the Chiefs don't score, guess what? You're going to overtime. So I think that was a very dumb decision by Josh McDaniels and the coaching staff for the Raiders. Devontae Adams, though, had a great game. 2 touchdowns, 124 yards. But Travis Kelce was the player of the game. 25 yards receiving, but he had 4 touchdowns. All 4 touchdowns from Patrick Mahomes went to Travis Kelce. And he not only beat the Raiders, but also he single-handedly beat my fantasy football team, mainly because Darren Waller didn't play. If Darren Waller played and he at least put up like 11 points, I probably would have won. But since Darren Waller didn't play, I lost and the Raiders lost. So that is a recap of all of the games from Week 5. So now that we're 5 weeks in to the season, I think it's a pretty good time. I've given top 10s each week, kind of, but I'm not a big fan of preseason power rankings in either college football, baseball, basketball, football, whatever. I don't think you should be ranking these teams before the season, because after every single week, the only way these teams are ranked is based off of how they were ranked the week before and in the preseason, especially in college football, but also in the NFL. That's how it works. So now that we're 5 weeks in, this is the first power rankings. When will I do the next one? I don't know. Definitely not next week. Probably not week 7. Maybe week 9 or week 10. Because that's when we'll have the next idea of these teams. But the first power rankings of the season, 1 to 32, we're going to start with the best team in football. And for me, that is the Buffalo Bills. They are 4-1. Yes, they lost a game. The Eagles are 5-0. They're not the number 1 team in football. Why? Because the Eagles are first in total yards per game, first in passing, second in yards allowed. They have the second best defense in the game. They're 6th in sacks. Josh Allen is first in yards, second in touchdowns. He's a 66.8 completion percentage. Besides the fact that the Bills' run game is not the strongest, Josh Allen is a premier quarterback in the league. He's an MVP candidate. He's a top 3 potential quarterback in the game of football right now. Offensively, they have everything going for them with Stephon Diggs, Isaiah McKenzie, Gabe Davis, Dawson Knox. Singletary even has big games from time to time. And that O-line is solid as well. And defensively, I mean, this team is one of the few teams in the league that's well-rounded on both sides of the ball. And not just well-rounded. They are dominant on both sides of the ball. With Von Miller, Ed Oliver, Poyer, Tre'Davious White. This defensive unit for the Bills is elite, and I see them as the best team in the NFL. Behind them, number 2, I have the Kansas City Chiefs. Still baffles me that people were saying the Chiefs won't win their division since Tyreek Hill is gone. I talked about that, I believe, a few episodes ago about, Tyreek Hill and the Chiefs them not being a legit team because he's not there anymore. Well, the Chiefs are still the Chiefs, and Patrick Mahomes is at quarterback, so this team is going to be amazing. I mean, Travis Kelce is the best tight end. Mahomes is the best QB. Andy Reid is one of the best coaches. They have one of the best offensive coordinators. They got good wide receiver depth and a nice running game. They're 6th in total yards, 14th in yards allowed. They have an average defense. And Mahomes is 1st in touchdowns and 4th in yards on the season. So the Chiefs is the Chiefs, and they are number 2 in the power rankings. 3 is where I have the Philadelphia Eagles, who are 5-0. Like I mentioned earlier, their defense is legit. 2nd in total yards per game offensively, and 4th in rushing offensively, but defensively, 4th in yards, 4th in sacks, and 1st in turnovers. They're getting all of the turnovers. Some of these stats, like if you're not super familiar, 4th in yards allowed isn't bad. Fourth in yards allowed is good. If it was 32nd in yards allowed, that's bad. Sometimes it gets confusing. I know it was confusing for me a few years back. And 1st in turnovers, that doesn't mean they're turning the ball over the most. That means they're getting and forcing the most turnovers on the other team. So Philadelphia is legit. Jalen Hurts is a guy. Great receiving weapons, an amazing offensive line in Philadelphia, and one of the best defensive units in the game for the Eagles. 4 have the Buccaneers. Tom Brady's still there. Their defense is legit, like I said earlier. They're top 5 in a lot of defensive statistics. Tampa Bay will be there in the end. Number 5, I have the Cowboys. Defensively, this team's amazing, and they're getting the job done with Cooper Rush. So I'd expect when Dak Prescott comes back, this offense to take a major step and promote themselves into a very legit team. 6, I have the Packers. Yes, they're 2nd in their division. Yes, they just lost to the Giants. But this team, you look at their statistics, they are up there. 9th in yards per game, and 5th in yards allowed. Great defense, great offense, great quarterback, good head coach. Recipe for success in the NFL. 7, 49ers. Amazing defense. A lot of these teams in the top have amazing defense. Why? Because defense wins championships. It's proven. I don't know the last time a team has had a bad defense and won a championship. So the 49ers are 7. Their offense has room to improve with Jimmy G. 8, I have the Ravens. This is the first team that really has a bad defense that is in the top 10, but they've had some rough weeks the past few weeks. Yes, they're 3-2 and they're winning some games, and their defense is definitely struggling. But for me, it's about Lamar Jackson. I think this is a guy that will get it done this season. He's an MVP candidate. He's trying to get a bag in the offseason, and I feel like he's a guy that can get it done in the playoffs and when it counts most. And I just really don't think there's a way that you can count out and bet against Lamar right now. Number 9, I have the Chargers. They lost to the Chiefs and they lost to the Jaguars, but the rest of this team offensively is amazing. Justin Herbert is a guy. Obviously, they're 5th in yards per game, 2nd in passing yards. Their defense has a lot of struggles right now, but once again, they're injured. But with all the star names on their defense, if they stay healthy and all start playing together, there's a chance at the end of the season, this is a top 15, top 12 defense when it's all said and done. Number 10, I have the Vikings, 4-1, leaders of their division. For me, it's their defense. Their defense is bad. They have a lot of holes defensively, but offensively, with Kirk Cousins, they're playing pretty good. And they have Justin Jefferson, who's among one of the best receivers in the NFL. 11, I have the Dolphins. Yes, they've had some rough weeks. Lost to the Bengals and lost to the Jets. But when Tua comes back, I expect this team to be just as good as they were earlier in the season with him at the helm for that offense. 12 is where I have the Giants, the surprise Giants, the fraud Giants. I'm not going to bag on them. I'm not going to rank them 29 just because they're the rest of their team I don't believe in. They are 4-1. I will give them credit. So I have them at 12. 13, I have the Bengals. This defense is great, 11th in yards allowed. Their offense has been having struggles, but that is because they've been sacked 18. Joe Burrow has been sacked 18 times. This O-line does not give them the opportunity, does not give Joe Burrow the opportunity to be successful. And when you look at their losses, all three of their losses have been either 3 points or less. So they've been in every single game that they've played. So they are a team, they're not getting blown out, and they are a team that I expect to improve with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, Boyd, Mixon, and some of the guys that they got on defense. If that O-line can just step up enough, this team will be among one of the top teams at the end of the year. 14 is the Seahawks. I have the Seahawks ranked up here very high, above some other teams in their division. Geno Smith is playing out of his mind. This defense is horrible. It's the 32nd ranked defense in yards allowed, but they're 8th in total yards offensively, with in part to Geno Smith and part of that running game. But Rashad Penny's now out for the season, so we'll see where it ranks, where this team ranks towards the end. I don't expect them to be a playoff team. I'd say this team maybe wins 6 games, but right now Geno Smith and this Seahawks offense is playing amazing, so all credit to them. They're at 14. 15 Browns. Like I said earlier, their offense is legit, and when Deshaun Watson comes back in Week 13, this offense should be taking 2 or 3 more steps towards one of the best offenses in the league, with elite running back play from Chubb and Hunt, and Amari Cooper at wide receiver, David Njoku still there. I'd expect this offense to get even better with Deshaun Watson. Defensively, they have a few struggles right now, but the Browns are the 15th team right now in the NFL. Excuse me. 16, I have the Jaguars. Questions for me on this team about how legit they are, but right now, I do like what I've been seeing from this team compared to what I saw last year and in part, the main reason for that is head coach. Urban Meyer's not there anymore. They have a real head coach in Doug Peterson, a Super Bowl winning head coach. So Trevor Lawrence has taken some steps, still makes a lot of mistakes, but Trevor Lawrence is a guy that has all of the talent and all the tools to be successful. And that team defensively is good. They're 9th in yards allowed, and offensively they're 13th. So I'd expect, there's the possibility this offense gets better. So the Jaguars are 16 for me. 17 is where I have the Rams. Like I was saying earlier, I just don't know what to think about this team. Their defense is top 11, but offensively they're 26th in total yards per game. So the big hole for them and the big problem is their offensive line. If they can just find a way to get it together, then I'd expect the Rams to be back there towards the top of these rankings in the NFL. 18 is the Saints. They've picked up 2 wins on the season. Both of them are against bird teams. Really, the Saints are competing personally. I hope this is all they accomplish this season. They're trying to win the bird gauntlet. They play all of the bird teams this season, and their 2 wins have came against the Falcons and Seahawks. So we'll see if they can complete the bird gauntlet and really win the only thing that matters for them this season. They're just not going to be there at the end. The Titans at 19, I feel like this is actually kind of low. I made this list and I feel like it's low. I'm not going to change it now, but the Titans are probably going to end up winning their division. Actually, this is so stupid. The Titans I have lower than the Jaguars, but I think the Titans right now are better. Anyways, moving on, Cardinals at 20. Offense struggles, defense struggles, and I would expect Cliff Kingsbury to not be that head coach next season. The Jets at 21. Yes, they just beat the Dolphins, but Zach Wilson at quarterback has not been making a lot of throws that you'd like to see out of the number 2 overall pick. And the Jets are probably another 10 years away from being a competent, really good football team in the NFL. 22 is the Patriots. Yes, they just beat the Lions, but I'd expect them to be towards the bottom of the NFL, towards one of the bottom teams in the standings at the end of the season. 23 is the Bears. Justin Fields has all the tools to be a guy, to be the quarterback for the Bears in the future. It's just a matter of the Bears believing in him, giving him weapons, giving him an offensive line, giving him all the tools to be successful. I think the Bears and Justin Fields will have success in the future if that happens. 24 is the Falcons. Not really a whole lot to say about this team. I might actually flip-flop them with the Raiders, who have it at 25. For the reasons I said earlier, this team is 1-4, but they are a better team than 1-4 than what their record says. They've lost, these games by close margins. They score one touchdown in these games. There's a chance they're 4-1, 5-0. The Raiders could be the best team in the AFC West right now. That's obviously not the case, and I don't want to just, sound like, as a Raiders fan, like, if this happened and this and this and this. Well, it didn't happen, right? But the Raiders are a good team. Despite their record, I think they're going to be a tough opponent. I don't think they're going to make the playoffs anymore at this point, but they're definitely better than another team in their division. 26 is the Colts. This offensive line is really bad for a team that's supposed to have one of the best offensive lines in the game. Matt Ryan and this entire offense. Last year, like I said, with Carson Wentz, they were 9th in offense. This year, they're among the bottom teams offensively. And I don't know if they're going to be able to recover. They just are not looking good this season. 27 is the Broncos. A lot of struggles for this team offensively. They barely put points up on the board. Russell Wilson apparently has a lat injury, which is why he hasn't been playing good. We'll see if that is the case and if he ends up getting it together at some point this season. But, I would say the Raiders are better than the Broncos. The Raiders did beat the Broncos. And the Raiders offensively are better than Denver at this current moment. 28, I have the Lions. They have one of the bottom 2 defenses in the league, but they have a top 3 offense in the NFL. So that's why the Lions are there. 29 is Washington. This team is bad. I don't expect them to win many games, even though Carson Wentz is there and he's going to put them in positions to be successful at times. The rest of this roster is not really that good. 30, Houston. They're really bad. 31, Steelers. For them, it's just the offense. The O-line is bad, and Najee Harris is not playing good. And 32, I have Carolina Panthers as the worst team in the league. Baker Mayfield's not good. Matt Rule just got fired, and this offense is bad. So those are my 32 team power rankings, ranked worst to first. We'll do the next one in 4 to 5 weeks, because that's probably when we'll have the next best evaluation. If I do it next week, most of these are going to stay the same. So we'll see in a few weeks where these teams rank. So that's it for all of the NFL, but guess what? We are not done with this episode. Real quick, I'm not going to go over the AP poll from college football right now. I'm just going to go over the Heisman Trophy, the MVP of college. There's really one guy. I have 3 people listed as the top 3, but number 1 is he's the only guy that's going to win the award. I don't see a way where he can't win the Heisman Trophy this year. That is C.J. Stroud of Ohio State at quarterback. 1,700 yards, 24 touchdowns, 3 picks, 94 QBR on the year. Ohio State has the best college offense in the country, despite being ranked number 2 in college football. They should be the number 1 ranked team in the country. This offense has so many weapons and is so dynamic and so amazing, and it's led by C.J. Stroud, who has just proven that he's going to be probably the first quarterback taken in the draft. He might be the number 1 overall pick in the upcoming draft. Number 2 in the Heisman favorites is Caleb Williams from USC. He's amazing. next year when he's eligible to be a quarterback or a draft pick at quarterback, he will be a top pick. This guy is legit. He makes some of the craziest plays I've personally ever seen. And watching him in person, he's the best quarterback I've ever seen play. I've only been to 2 football games in my career, and they're both college. So it's not like I've seen with my own eyes in person Tom Brady and saying that Caleb Williams is better. But Caleb Williams is probably number 2. Number 3 would be Hendon Hooker of Tennessee, Tennessee's ranked number 5 in the country, ahead of USC, which I don't really agree with. But Tennessee and Alabama play each other this weekend, which is actually going to be really cool. You have the number 5 and the number 3 team in the country playing each other. That is going to be an amazing game to watch. That'll have major college football playoff implications. But this Hendon Hooker guy, 1,400 yards, 10 touchdowns, 90 quarterback rating. He's led this Tennessee team to the number 5 team in the country, led them to a 5-0 start, and I think he's going to continue to do that throughout the season. Bryce Young of Alabama, I don't have him in my top 3. I don't really see him winning the Heisman this year. He won it last year, but he's missed a few games. There's a chance he doesn't even play in this Tennessee game. So he's been out a few weeks, and I think that really takes him out in the potential winnings. Dude, my throat is killing me. Holy crap. Been talking for an hour, and we still got a little bit more left. Excuse me. This is just pain. MLB playoffs. The wild card round wrapped up on Sunday, and the Mets lost. The Mets pulled a Met. They did what they have done for many years of their existence. They won 101 games. They had a division lead for 175 days, lose it at the end to the Braves, and then they lose in the wild card round to the Padres. That was hilarious. At one point in the game, Game 3, the Mets think Joe Musgrove is cheating. They think he's got foreign substance on his ears. The umpires touch his ears, check his ears. They find nothing. Padres win the series. They go to play the Dodgers in the NLDS. Spoiler alert, they lose Game 1. So the Padres are down 1-0 to the Dodgers. But it's just great to see, and it's very funny to see the New York Mets lose. Cleveland beat Tampa Bay. This pitching matchup between these two teams was incredible. Tristan McKenzie pitched an amazing game. Shane Bieber played great. There was a 15-inning game at one point. Walk-off home run sends Cleveland to play against the Yankees. Seattle beat the Blue Jays in 2 games. Or was it? It was 2 games. Seattle moves on to play Houston. And they just play Houston today because all the first divisional games wrapped up as today as I'm recording this. And wow, Seattle came out of the gate swinging, took Justin Verlander out after 4 innings. But they end up losing. Houston wins. Yordan Alvarez hits a walk-off homer to put Houston on top. Houston's probably the better team in the series. And then finally, Phillies beat the Cardinals in the wild card round. And then they take Game 1 against the Braves in the NLDS. And they almost choke it at the end. They win 7-6 though. So the Cardinals lost. I think I picked the Cardinals to win. They are out. The Phillies are looking really nice right now in the postseason. Their offense is definitely very, very hot. The Dodgers are the best team in baseball. They take care of the Padres. It was a 5-3 win for them in the first game of the NLDS. But it felt like it was 15-3. The Dodgers were in control of that game the entire night. Houston finding a way to come back against Seattle was incredible for what looked like an easy first game win for Seattle, which would have really set a great tone. Now the momentum's with Houston. And then the Yankees get it done against Cleveland. The Yankee offense really showed up. I still think Cleveland has a chance to win this series. But it was a big must-win game for the Yankees, not as much for Cleveland, personally. So there's the quick hit with the MLB postseason right now. Last segment of the episode, we have the NBA preview. We're like, I don't know how far away we are from the start of the season. I think it's like a week or two from the beginning of the NBA regular season. So we're going to give my standings and who I think will play in the finals, make the finals, win the finals. The thing with the regular season in these standings is, there's always a team there's always teams in the regular season that are good, that end up finishing high seeds, but when it comes to the playoffs, they don't perform. So that's one thing I did take in mind. And when I read these out, don't be surprised that I put this team above this team, even though just because they're lower doesn't mean that they're not as good as these upper seeded teams. Starting out east, I have the Milwaukee Bucks finishing number 1. They had a chance of making it and winning the finals last season if Chris Middleton doesn't get injured. They brought back pretty much the same team. Giannis is still there. He's the best player in the world. Chris Middleton, Drew Holiday. The Bucks are going to finish number 1. Number 2, Boston. They just made it to the finals. They brought back the same team. Now, they don't have their head coach this season. He got suspended by the team. But I'd expect the Celtics to be very good this regular season. Number 3, I have the Sixers. I think James Harden is going to have a bounce-back season. The past few years, this guy's been good. He's been James Harden. I think he's been an all-star these past few seasons, but he's not been the guy that he was in Houston. And I think James Harden is going to come back this season with Joel Embiid, the second best center in the game of basketball. And they're going to come out guns blazing this regular season, finish number 3. Number 4, I have the Brooklyn Nets. This would be very high for them to finish for a team that's barely played a lot of games together between KD and Kyrie. I expect them to play a lot of games together this season. Kevin Durant requested a trade in the offseason. Decided, I'm going to come back. It's probably the best chance I have to win. So let's make it count this season, and let's prove all the doubters, all the haters wrong. Let's prove myself wrong for saying that I wanted to leave this team. So they have a lot of talent. You got great 3-point shooting, great stars. The other question mark for them is Ben Simmons. What will he do? But I expect the Nets to finish 4th in the East. 5, I have the Cavaliers. They acquired Donovan Mitchell in the offseason in a big trade that they didn't even have to trade any of their major starters, major players on their roster. They got all-star Darius Garland, Kevin Love, Jarrett Allen, rookie last year, Evan Mobley, who's a future all-star. This guy's incredible. And they have Donovan Mitchell. So the Cavs will be, I think, a really good regular season team. But I don't think they'll make it really past the semifinals. I could see them making the conference finals, but I don't think this team is a championship contender just quite yet. Or quite just yet. 6, I have the Heat. Jimmy Butler and Bam Adebayo are great. 7 is the Hawks. They did acquire DeJounte Murray. They do have Trae Young. 8 is the Raptors. This is a great young team. Ran very, very well with OG Anunoby and rookie Scotty Barnes and Fred VanVleet, Pascal Siakam. This team should be pretty good. So the play-in, I always forget about that. So the Hawks and Raptors, Bulls and Knicks would be my play-in teams. Bulls I have finishing 9, and Knicks I have finishing 10. Down year for the Knicks last year. Kind of expect some of the same. Their roster is really not that good. And for the Bulls, I just think these other teams in their Eastern Conference are just better teams. Zach LaVine is still there, and Lonzo's there, and DeMar DeRozan's there. But I think DeMar DeRozan will have a regression. He'll definitely take a step back this season. He was really good last year, but I don't expect the same for him this year. 11 is the Wizards, 12 Hornets, 13 Pistons, who have a plethora of young talent, but they're not going to make that big of a jump yet. 14 Orlando, and 15 Indiana Pacers, who are one of the least talent-heavy teams in the game. Out west, I have Memphis finishing number 1, Warriors finishing number 2, defending champions. Number 3, I have the Timberwolves. They just acquired Rudy Gobert in the offseason, and Rudy Gobert is one of the best regular season defensive players in the game. The Timberwolves just feel like a team that are going to click in the regular season. They're going to be amazing this regular season. Whether or not it translates to the postseason, I guess we'll find out. 4, I have the Clippers. I'm high on this team. As a Lakers fan, I'm high on the Clippers. I think the Clippers are going to be good. They have the best depth in basketball, and they are getting Kawhi Leonard back from an injury. And I think people just forget about Paul George. I mean, Paul George is one of the best players in the game. He's on the Clippers with Kawhi Leonard. Tyronn Lue's one of the best coaches in basketball. So I'd expect the Clippers to be really good this season. I have them finishing 4th. 5th, I have the Suns. They had the best record in the game last season. Had a very, very brutal playoff loss last year to the Mavericks. And the vibes around Phoenix didn't look great at their media day. But I think when it comes to playing basketball, they will be there, finishing 5th. 6th, I have Denver with the back-to-back 2-time MVP Nikola Jokic, the best center in the game. I have them finishing 6th. Dallas at 7. They're going to be good, but really they only have Luka. So I think Luka can only do so much. I mean, he did a lot last year. Took them to the Western Conference Finals. But regular season-wise, they only have Luka Doncic on their team. 8, I have New Orleans. A lot of people really, really high on this team. I think they're going to be good. I think they will ultimately end up making the playoffs. I mean, I have them making the play-in. I think they'll find a way to make the postseason. Zion's going to be healthy. He looks great. He looks fit. He looks like he's ready to ball out. CJ McCollum. Brandon Ingram, one of the best players in the game. Very underrated player. So the Pelicans, I expect them to be very good this season, even though I have them finishing 8th. The Lakers, I have at 9th. Some of this is my Lakers fan bias. I'm not going to lie. I think the Lakers are going to be good. I hope they're good. But they have a lot of holes. I don't know what Russell Westbrook's going to be, and outside of LeBron and AD, there's really not a lot I like about this roster. Excuse me. Uh, 11, I have Portland, outside of Dame, and outside of Anthony Simons. I don't really like a lot of this roster, and especially their bench and their depth. Not a whole lot going there. 12, I have Houston. These bottom 4 are kind of there's a gap between them and Portland. 12, I have Houston. 13, OKC. 14, the Jazz. And 15, the Spurs. Those 4 teams are going to be competing in the Victor Wembanyama sweepstakes in the next year's draft. I'll have to talk about that guy at some point in the future. He's basically going to be the number 1 overall pick in the draft. So there's going to be a lot of teams potentially tanking for his services this season and in the future. If I had to pick what is my NBA Finals matchup for this season, it's tough. These are the teams that I have as contenders: Milwaukee, Boston, Philadelphia, and Brooklyn. And I have Golden State, the Clippers, Memphis maybe, the Suns maybe, and the Nuggets maybe as contenders. Give me Milwaukee out east. I think they are going to be amazing this year. They have Giannis, best player in the game. And then out west, give me the Clippers. Clippers versus Milwaukee Bucks, NBA Finals. I think the Bucks are going to win it. I think Giannis is going to win an MVP this season. So that's just a light NBA preview. I could have gone through all the teams and talk about what they did and all of that. And maybe we'll do that in an episode before the season starts. But my throat hurts a lot, and it's pretty late, and this has been a long episode. So yeah, that's going to do it for episode number 9 of the franchise. NFL Week 5 recap, 32 team power rankings, MLB Divisional round, and a quick NBA preview for the season. Just a reminder that this podcast is available on YouTube, Spotify, and iTunes. So if you're watching along on YouTube, go check it out on Spotify too. Go check it out on Apple Podcasts. Thank every single one of you guys for listening. Make sure to check out the Instagrams, which are not linked, but they're in the bios. I'm going to start getting active on TikTok. That's a big way to grow the podcast audience on TikTok. If you're listening on Spotify, you can support the podcast using the link on the homepage. But thank you guys so much for tuning in to another episode of The Franchise. And we're going to catch you guys sometime later with another episode. But see you guys. See you guys next time.